listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. I'm really happy today to welcome Jay Hunt from Equine Video Pro. She's got over 30 years of television and video experience. She's also a horse owner and a grassroots eventer. So Jay has combined her love of video and her passion for horses to help equestrians shine online, which I think was probably quite a task. So she teaches busy equestrians how to use their smartphones, so not any fancy gear necessarily, to capture engaging video content and help people to grow their businesses if they want to do. So also one thing that Jay told me that I really love is that she works with people who can hardly turn on their phone to full-blown content creators wanting the latest AI tips. So that's brilliant because I think I fit in there somewhere. I'm probably nearer to the can't turn on the phone category. So welcome, Jay. It's lovely to see you.
Oh, it's really great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, great. I think we're going to learn a lot. We're going to pack a lot in today. So, whether somebody is wanting to create content for their business or it's a social media post that they want to do or they're an influencer, then, I think whatever we use video for, and maybe it's videos for a vet even, or a physio, so that you can show your physio or your vet what's going on with your horse, then this is something that we all need to probably get more of a handle on. So tell us, how did your video and television experience start?
Well, when I look back on it now, I think, why didn't I have this idea sooner, really? But I worked, mainly for the BBC, and then I was an independent producer. So I was always been freelance, always sort of telling stories, videos, factual entertainment, that sort of background. And like a lot of people, I was obsessed with horses as a child, and then you start working and it sort of, goes away for a bit. And then, of course, it comes back with a passion. So I was sort of juggling both. And I started up my own video production company in 2008. I did a bit of horsey work, but I wasn't, one of the equine media companies. And then when COVID came along, I just started teaching a lot of my clients how to use their smartphones, because not everybody could afford to have a film crew. And so if people were at events, they'd say, oh, yeah, we'll pay for one cameraman, but could you teach some of our people how to use their smartphones so that they could create some B-roll? So we were doing that. And then when COVID came along, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to put, these day courses online. So I did that, and it was selling and it was fine. And then I had tons of all my horsey friends were saying, oh, I know what you're doing, but can you help me? And I couldn't do that course because it would be too much for me. And I really started to think about how many equestrian businesses, and when I say businesses, most of us are one-man bands, we're going to get left behind. And I really sat and thought, how can I help equestrians? Because I know equestrian life. I am one. I know nobody's got any time. You see things and you think, oh, that sounds nice. And then you think, oh God, how long is it going to take me to do that? And then you scroll on past. So what I did was I looked at, my main course, smartphone teaching course, and I thought, how can I make this shorter? How can I make it more focused? How can I make it cheaper and more geared to equestrian shooting? So, for example, more advice on shooting outside, things like that. So that was really the main course that I launched in 2023. And since then, I've had a lot of feedback from people. So what we've tried to do now is to create a whole load of courses and services that will cover every equestrian's need. And I deliberately made them start at £7 because I just feel, I don't want anybody to be left behind. So that's what we're doing, is constantly evolving, really, from hearing from equestrians about what they want. So it's not just one course that suits all, because as you said, there are a lot of people who literally sort of cannot turn on their phones. And, it always amazes me because people go and spend a huge amount of money on, the latest iPhone the latest Samsung, these things are really expensive. And you say, oh, great, you've got all this technology, and they go, oh, yeah, but I don't use it for that. And it's like, it's sitting there in your hand with so many capabilities. And I think, even if people haven't got the latest gadget, they think, oh, well, I've kind of stopped or I haven't done very much because not having the latest phone is what stopped me. And then when you say, well, actually, let's just bump up what you've got in your pocket anyway, because it's going to do a really good job for you. I think most people are really surprised when you show them how to change the settings, how to do a few things, that they have got something in their hand already that they can use. Because no equestrians are going to go out there and buy a fancy camera and do all of that. You've got to be quick and easy. So why not, just gear it all to being on your smartphone?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I saw a fabulous post actually today from one of my connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And he was showing his video equipment for producing videos for LinkedIn. And he had, I think, 2 or 3 drones. He had a fancy camera, he had fancy mics, all the gear. I mean, it was stunning. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'm like,
that's not
a
me.
million miles, no, not even a million miles, light years away from that. So when you said, you teach people to use a smartphone, that is just phenomenal, because like you say, we've got these capabilities in our pockets, and it's just a question of learning a few bits and pieces to put together maybe something that's very, very simple. So how much can using only a smartphone transform your posts or your equestrian business?
Oh, massively. I mean, if you say, okay, say an average person in a non-swanky yard, for example, with a smartphone covered in straw, what
Sounds like
am I,
me.
what am I going to do? Because to them, the creating really professional content seems a million miles away from where they are standing. So the first thing is really to just look at the settings and see what is your phone offering you in terms of bumping up what you've got. So older phones, when you go to settings and camera settings, will probably say something called 720, which is what everybody used to shoot in. Then it went up to HD. So it might say HD 1080. That is more than good enough to shoot in to look good on social media. It might offer you 4K, which is great because then you can zoom in a bit on it. And it will then give you, I don't know if you've seen this, frames per second. So it'll probably give you an option of 25, 30, or 60. So with equestrians, I always say, if you've got 4K, and 60 frames per second, just choose that setting, because what that does automatically is give you that really crisp look that professionals have. And it just helps you out that little bit more. So if you just do nothing else but put it on that setting and turn your video stabilization button on, then you've immediately done 2 things that are going to make a massive difference. The other thing that sounds ridiculous but does make a massive difference is cleaning your lens. Because, of course, equestrians just shove it in our pockets.
I love that.
Yeah, but it's true, it's in your pocket, a whole load of polos and straw and some supplement and God knows what else. And then they get up and go, oh, look, I couldn't do this because it looked really blurry. And it's like, that's because you need to clean your lens. But the other thing I said to people is, they're like, oh, I haven't got a tripod or I can't do that. So I've said my favourite trick at the yard is to just get a paper cup, make 2 cuts either side, jam your phone in that, and that will just hold it steady. And then you can just set that up and just turn it on and film yourself. So I tend to get people starting with just that. Or I don't know if you've seen, there's those sort of sticky pads. They're about £2 on Amazon that you can stick on the back of your phone. And they stick really nicely to metal or glass. And then you can, just use those. Because if you haven't got anybody there helping you, then you've got to work out ways of keeping your camera stable and how can you, do that when you're on your own. The other thing I think that has made the biggest difference to people is when I've said, go to turn on your video setting and then see if your camera has something which will either be called cinematic or portrait. Now, some people are used to using that to take photos where you blur out the background and then the subject that you're photographing or video really pops out at you.
Yeah.
And when you look at all those really lovely shots that Benjamin Clark and all those sort of people who are at badminton taking fabulous shots, and people are like, oh my God, look at that. That's because those expensive cameras will blur out that background and the horse and rider really pop out at you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to shoot footage like that, but you definitely can turn on that blur, and that will then really blur out a background. So if you're in a messy yard, what stops a lot of people is thinking, I just haven't got a perfect place to do this. I live and work in chaos. I can't even find anywhere where I could just sit or do some of this. And I've had people go, oh my God, I'm like, go into your tack shop, go into your tack room and just put on the blur, stand there and they're like, oh my God, this looks really nice.
Just no need to clean your saddle or your bridles.
Nothing. Just turn on the blur. And it's like the best thing ever for equestrian, because you could be sitting somewhere really non-glamorous and yet somehow it just looks really good. So that's something that has really, really helped people. So it's the non-shaky and using the blur. And also, I think the third tip I'd give people is when people say, well, what on earth am I going to shoot? What am I going to do? I'm not going to an event. I'm not doing anything glamorous. I'm not suddenly pulling on Holland Cooper outfits. What am I going to shoot? So my answer is you shoot what you are doing. So you just create your B-roll. So it could be just, those shots where you film down at your feet in a pair of, riding boots walking across the yard. It could be just your mug of tea in the tack room. It can be grooming shots. It can be tacking up shots. All of those things that you think are not particularly interesting because you're doing them every day are going to create a fantastic library of B-roll that's sitting on your camera. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every single day. You start to build these up. And the other thing I say to people is remember the rules of three. So if you are going to, for example, shoot, putting on some hoof oil, then you might as well shoot it 3 times. So turn on the blur and shoot a wide shot so you can see your horse's leg, and the hoof and you doing that action. Then shoot a tighter shot, which is maybe, half the leg and hoof, so that you can really clearly see what you're doing. And then do a tight shot of really tight up on the bristles and that going on. And then if you're going to shoot one, you might as well shoot 3. So you then immediately got 3 shots, and that's 3 done on your camera roll. So it's amazing how quickly you can build up that library. And as I say, once you're shooting in, in a better setting that's going to boost your phone, and you turn the blur on, then people go, oh my God, now I'm getting interested because I can actually see that this is going to make a difference. So that's what I'd say to people just starting out, is take those tips to sort of get yourself going a bit.
Yeah. And what I like is the ideas that you've already given us. You haven't mentioned anyone being on camera yet.
No, but that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I think, that does stop a lot of equestrians, again, because, we're out there, we're doing stuff, we're not looking glamorous. I had one woman who just said, oh, I can't bear it with my hair. So I said, well, why don't you record your chats with your hat on? No equestrian's going to mind if you've got your riding hat on. And she said, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. I was just going to sit inside and I thought I've got to do my hair and I've got to create the background. So she just always, at the end of the day, puts her hat on and stands leaning on the fence and does all her chats then. And that has really worked for her. But I do have a lot of people who say, I would do it if I didn't have to be on camera. And I think these days, we've all seen, there are a lot of people running face-free accounts in the equestrian world that are doing really well. So you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to be. And I think that sort of also frees a lot of people up. You can shoot stuff with somebody. If you're tacking up, somebody can shoot, from the back of your head, or you set your camera up so you've got the back of your head. Or if you don't want to be in it at all, you can just do tips with your hands, unboxing things. tips, all of those things, stuff with your horse, none of that demands that you get on camera and start speaking if you're really uncomfortable doing that. I think
Mm.
nowadays there is a freedom for not having to get in the shot yourself. And, there are a lot in the equestrian world that are running those face-free accounts. It just, it's just a little tweak. If people can't see your face, then quite often I say to people, we'll do a little voiceover on it.
Mm.
Make sure that you're saying something a little bit more personal because they haven't got your face as a reference. So you might have to over explain a couple of things so they feel that they know you a bit more. But
Yeah.
it's just a tweak, and it's not a reason why people, should say, oh, I'm absolutely not going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So using video, I mean, the social media that I think of for video is Instagram. So have
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
any tips for Instagram content?
Well, I think with Instagram, a lot of equestrians are on Instagram and they're on Facebook. And the thing with Instagram is you get two hits at once. Do you know what I mean? Because then you can
Yeah.
automatically do it on your Facebook. And then if people are going on to do TikTok, then obviously you haven't got anything, where you've got the TikTok mark on it. And so if people are doing that for TikTok
Yeah.
and then they want to repost on Instagram, I say do it the other way round because Instagram then doesn't do that. So you can definitely do that. But I think the thing is with Instagram is that equestrians get really frustrated because they're not seeing any comeback from it. So I get a lot of people saying, oh, I put up some posts and I get people liking it, but I don't get any sales from it. And
Mm.
sometimes I just feel it's like other riders watching me. And I think the biggest mistake people make on Instagram is to not have a strategy. So they will put out one post and then think, oh, maybe I'll do a post on this. Oh, maybe tomorrow I saw somebody else did something on that. Maybe everybody's, liking tips about bridles. Maybe I'll try that.
Mm.
So they kind of shoot from the hip without thinking very clearly about what they're doing. So I think it's one of I think the main tip I would give is we're all in this equestrian niche, but it's to really sort of niche down and explain to people what you're doing. So, for example, if you're running a tack shop and if had a bottle of horse shampoo and you put up a post of it saying, hey, this horse shampoo is now in stock, you might get somebody going, oh, great, that's reminded me. Whereas if you had a post saying, the reason this is our best selling shampoo is it means you can get your horse ready for an event or show in half the time, then it gets people's attention much more. So it's about
Yeah.
being very, very specific in solving people's pain points, and us equestrians have many pain points, so there's not any shortage of that. But I think people are not confident enough to be very specific. And I think,
Yeah.
or they'll put out one and then think, oh, I don't want to be too salesy, or, well, everybody's seen that, so I can't really say that again. Whereas when you think of how many times we need to say the same thing, and
Yeah.
that nobody is going to go, oh, hello, you've just repeated this 8 times, I'm bored of it, because you've got so many people just clicking, clicking, clicking. That's never going to happen. But you do have to keep reinventing the wheel and finding different ways of doing it. And that's why I think it's a good idea to shoot the 3 shots. So if you are selling a bridle and you've got 3 different size shots of it, then you just put a different hook on each of those. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So
Mm.
I think that's, definitely something. I mean, I did create this Reels kit for Instagram because exactly this. People like I just can't get the hang of it. So it was like, well, if I give you some clips and some hooks and some calls to action, then all you've got to do effectively is take what I've done, cut and paste the trending hashtags on it. And then I did a little video of, how to put a trending audio on, or if you've never done a reel before, this is how you do it. And that has been really popular because
Yeah.
I think people don't want to admit, you assume that everybody knows how to do this, but They don't. And the other thing that's made a difference is I've said to people, are you the only horsey person I've ever met who is at a yard where there are not young people hanging around on their phones? So if you buy the reels kit and give it to them and make them do it, but that's what somebody did that and just said, there was a girl coming in on the Saturday and she said, right, I want you to sit down and watch this and film me 50 clips. That's your job today, is to film me 50 horses. This girl thought she was, having a great time. Oh, I'm not doing the mucking out. I was a really glam job today. But, it was just, Jenny just said, I'm never going to get this, but I've got two people here who are always on the bloody phones, so they might as well be doing something useful on their phones to help me out. And that has really worked because, people can then log on. You can give it to a member of staff and they can log on and do it because we've all got different skills. And if you think, well, how am I going to do this? Then there is always a younger person who finds doing this stuff fun and interesting. I had another client recently who just said, oh, I'm going to buy your course because I'm buying it for my 16-year-old son, because once he's finished doing his GCSEs this summer, I'm not just having him droobing around all summer. I've decided that he can then film his sister and then he can do all the social media and we can start building up her account. And he's going to do that as part of a summer job. So I was like, well, excellent. That's a really good idea. So it can work like that rather than people thinking, oh, I've got to do absolutely all of this myself.
Yeah, I love that because everybody knows a teenager. And actually, when I think of the teenagers up at the yard that I'm on, that's what they do.
Yeah.
They are on their phone. Their mums are saying to them, just go and fill these hay nets. And they come to the hay shed and they're there for an hour, filling one hay net.
Fill the hay nets and film it.
Yeah. They would love that. I'm definitely going to employ them.
Yeah, because then you suddenly get 30 sort of 10-second clips that you can use.
Yeah. I don't know whether their mums will be too pleased because they're supposed to help them muck out as well.
But they can do
I don't mind.
I could time lapse of what they're doing, you see.
Yeah. Yeah, throwing out more bedding than poo, I think.
We've all seen that. Yeah.
It's difficult to be on your phone and muck out as well. But yeah, I wonder, I think I'm going to challenge myself to ask them to film some footage and maybe I'll muck out for them as a
see what
or something like that.
It's interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean, I'm half techie, so I could probably do it myself. My thing is that I'm probably time poor.
Yes.
Although I haven't got it down to a T. I'm sure if I did it often enough, it would be like clockwork. But at the moment, it would probably take me a bit longer. But yeah, if I could get the...
But what gets me is that a lot of this advice that's given to people, it has no idea of equestrian's life.
Yeah.
So they're like, put aside a day and batch up your content. And you're like, okay then. So it's sort of things like that equestrians then completely switch off from, because that's never going to happen. And I think all the technical equipment as well, there's a lot of equestrians I know who've bought pivos and then not had a clue how to use them, or who've bought some expensive editing software and then they're like, oh God, well, I open it up and I see this, really complicated setup on my computer and I just thought, well, I'm not doing that. Or the other big mistake I've seen people make is they're quite expensive, those microphones that are Bluetooth, which are just for equestrians, are just always breaking up. So, it's getting a bit involved in that expensive equipment. I mean, I think people think that I'm going to advise, how much is the stuff you're advising? I mean, the basic tripods, we tend to test them. So I test them and then I send them out with my cameramen and say, while you're shooting stuff, can you test that and see, what is it robust enough? What do you think? So I think the tripod that we use at the moment is about £29 from Amazon. So it's sturdy enough that you can stick it down, and it's not going to suddenly blow away and suddenly a horse you're shooting spooks and the whole thing's, gone. You've got to be sensible about it. But those are about 30 quid. And there's a Boya microphone that we recommend, which is £15. And we've been trying loads of really expensive ones, and nothing has beat that. We just put a little windsock on it, clip it onto a lapel. The thing to not do is ever clip it onto a puffer jacket, because then you get that really bad rustle. But any other jacket, and that works really well when you're outside, because with all the technology of our phones, they will shoot really fantastic footage, but the sound on them is absolutely terrible. And that's what lets people down, and it doesn't appear professional, because you can't rely on that inbuilt microphone on the phone. So you've got to just plug in a mic and buy one of those little jacks to plug it in with. I do not understand why phones stopped having that jack socket, that you can just automatically plug. I think it's probably because people started having Bluetooth earphones. So they thought, well, you don't need it. But now everybody's using it for video. Maybe that'll be a comeback. So you just get a little £5 jack, plug it in, and then you've got that ready to go, and you've got really great sound. But there are now a lot of free noise reducer apps, because I've had people say, oh my God, I suddenly saw Laura Collett at an event, and I ran over and got a little quick chat with her, and then I got home and the wind is on it is terrible. And what am I going to do? So there are noise reducing apps, but also within your own phone, if you click on a video that you've made and it says edit at the bottom, quite often now, depending on your phone, it will give you an option and say, it usually says noise assist, I think is what it's offering at the moment. But they're getting better and better, and you can really cut down on that wind sound. So that's, it's just little things that the phones are doing to help us all out are well worth it, especially when we're shooting outside all the time.
Yeah, and I think that was something that I thought about when I thought about doing videos outside.
Yeah.
And I thought, but nobody's going to hear me, or they're going to have to hear me through a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And I thought mistakenly that the microphones would cost the earth,
Yeah.
So that's really useful.
Well, the one we use, the little road one, which is £15, has a 6-foot wire on it, so you can actually move down the yard away from the camera or whatever. What we do have around horses is we have a sort of, it's not a wireless one, it's one that you plug in, but you can then just attach it either to your camera, or we put the camera in what we call a little U-rig, and that's a road mic. I think that's £40. So that's actually attached on a sort of little rig that you put your camera in.
Yeah.
So that's really safe around the horses, because there isn't even a cable. But that's £40. But again, all the more expensive ones than that we've tried, there's just no point in spending any more money. You just want an absolute minimal kit. And, if you just have a little U-rig that you hold on to and put the phone in and give yourself some more stability, just with that and your microphone, most people are ready to go with that, and it massively improves what they're doing.
Yeah. I can see that now very, very much.
But I think you get overwhelmed, don't you? With what thinking, do I have to have drones and the pivos and everything else? And it's suddenly you just think the whole thing is a nightmare, and then you think, I'm not going to do any of it.
Yeah, and I a pivo owner, but I can't tell you the last time I used it. I think I'm thinking about 2 years ago, maybe.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't use it that much when I had it, when I was using it, because it didn't follow me very well.
Yes. Yeah.
Half the time it was just shooting thin air.
They're really Marmite, aren't they? People either really love them or say they just can't get it to sort of connect.
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay for what I just wanted it for myself. I wasn't putting it on social media or anything. But at the same time, wouldn't it have been lovely if that footage could have gone on social media? But half the time it was just staring at a fence, and occasionally a horse would come round.
What you should do is rent it out.
Yeah,
because I reckon there's tons of people who'd want it for an afternoon or want to try it out before you buy it.
Yeah.
It's like all the cameramen rent their equipment out. So if they're not using it, they put it up and then other people rent it out for the day. So
Right.
yeah, I reckon you can get your money back on your Pivo.
Possibly. I'd have to do quite a bit of renting,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah. And also people would probably come back and say, it wouldn't follow me.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good contrast with them, haven't you? You
Yeah, I think
can't
people
have.
put pads on, like get a bright
Yeah.
pad or bright boots and do that, or really, because I think somebody I know said, oh, they were in an indoor school and then they had just cream and a cream t-shirt and they were on a grey horse and it was like everything just merged into one and it
Yeah.
couldn't pick anything out. So I think, yeah, if you suddenly go for green boots and everything, you've got to go for matchy that's what it is. The whole bright matchy and then it's going
Yeah.
to pick you up.
Yeah, that is true. And I think that's sometimes why it didn't follow me, because I just merged into the background. You know,
Yeah.
you've got a green and brown background, and my horse is brown, and it just thought, it couldn't decide. It just thought I was a tree or something. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing.
so when you think about the people that you have helped
Yeah.
with videos or social media or a combination, can you think of a particular success story that you'd like to share with us?
Well, there's one client who I really enjoyed working with. I hope he doesn't mind me talking about him. He's called Ben Dunn and he runs Prestige Equine Search. So he breeds horses and he runs a sales livery yard. And he also, during COVID, set up as a horse finder to find horses for people. And I have to say, he is, in my opinion, the best out there. He is just amazing at what he does, but he never sort of brags about it. And he didn't do that much on social media because he just said he felt like it was showing off. So the heat sort of made him a bit uncomfortable. So he and I ended up talking about what we could do with video to promote his business, but also what he wanted was to get him and the team to learn how they could carry on shooting their own footage. So that worked really well for them. So what we did was I actually took a cameraman and I shot some stuff. So we did that for them over 2 days and they banked all that footage. So we edited up some stuff to get them started off. And then we then delivered all that footage to them so that they could reuse them. And then the boys did the course because he's got 2 show jumpers, a guy called Nathan Carson and Connor McLaren, who are doing really well. And they're obviously off at shows all the time. And they were saying, you know, nowadays there are people there, you can pay people to do your reels, which I think is about 30 or 40 pounds. You know, a videographer will shoot you in the warm-up ring, shoot you around, cut it together. And they're like, yeah, but it really clocks up. And I'm like, well, why don't you shoot each other? So they did the course and now they just build it into what they're doing. So they shoot each other when they're out at events. And so what has helped is it's gone from them sort of having sporadic odd videos to now they've got much more of a strategic approach, and they found their engagement massively went up. They started doing some more personal stories because I said, well, I want to know the stories of, you know, the horse, you know, how did that person find that horse, or why was that horse perfect for that person? How did you know that that was going to be a good match? So just having a bit more of an emotional connection has worked really well for them. So I'm keeping in touch with them. And at the moment, they're going great guns on what they're doing. And so that's really nice when you feel you can help and then you can sort of, you know, carry on seeing what they're doing. We also, I was just thinking what's funny, we also do some work for Lucinda Green, their cross country academy, which is the funniest job I ever do because you have to be so quick with Lucinda because Rachel, who runs the academy, is very organised and will have lists of what to do. And then you turn up and Lucinda's suddenly like, I'm now going to talk about, you know, a cannon boat, or I'm now going to talk about a bridle. Doesn't everybody know this? And you're like, no, Lucinda, they don't. Well, for God's sake, let's talk about this. And then you have to be absolutely ready to go. You're like, Lucinda, can you repeat that? No, I'm on to something else. And so you have to be the quickest. She doesn't only sharpen up your equestrian skills, she sharpens up your video skills. You have to be really quick to catch it. But doing so, it's just being adaptable, really, and things. But that's what I like about it. Is I'm doing that tomorrow. I'm talking to a girl who set up a second-hand tack shop. She wants some more ideas of what she can shoot. She's finding that it started off well, but now that sales have gone down. I mean, I don't know what's happened at the moment, but I've got so many people saying that sales have suddenly really, really gone down. So, it's just looking at helping them look at strategies, because I think when I started this, I thought that equestrians, why would I think this, were like other groups of people who would view social media as one issue and then video as another. But for equestrians, it's all in the same pot. Do you know what I mean? It's social media, website, video, it's all a nightmare. And it's all in the same pot of the problem I've got to solve. So actually, what's helped with that is thinking of things that can help. So at the moment, we're working on doing a social success kit for people so they can sign up for a monthly fee. We will basically do everything for them. So we would send you a month's worth of your reels done and your stories done. So all you've got to do is film a 5-second clip, and we tell you what to film, and then cut and paste everything we've got onto it and then post it up. So that's helping people create strategies and things. And that's really interesting, working with people on that. So it's, for me, the joy of it is every day is different, because you're hearing different stories of what people are struggling with, and the story behind their business. And there is always a story, isn't there, with equestrians? There's always, something. And it's, that's the joy of it, because it's a world I really, really understand. I think it's much easier for me to then hear where they're coming from. And I think there are people out there who can help who don't necessarily have a horsey background. But I think the kind of equestrian's way of life, and quite how time poor most people are, they're not just saying that. Do you know what I mean? If you're running a business and a family and a yard, then yeah, you really don't have any time. And I think you have to really respect and understand that, and build a system and help to somebody in that situation, rather than just thinking, oh, well, we're all time poor. You've got to deal with it, because I think as a group, we really, really are. And I'm running my own small business. So it's not like I don't identify with people. There is a sense that we're all in this together. Some people are doing better than others, but there's pros and cons of being in this horse world, because I say to people, yes, people are outspoken, and I think some people fear going online because they think I'm going to get trolled, or people are really outspoken, in this area. So that could be that they don't want to look silly. So running a face-free account has helped them feel a bit more confident about doing things. But I've always said the plus point is that people really respond to emotion, and we're around horses, and so you've always got stories to tell, and the storytelling and the emotion are two things that so many other areas of business don't have, and we have in spades. So there's real pros and cons to it, I think, when it comes to doing it for equestrians. But none of us are content creators. We're all running our own businesses and using content to promote our businesses. So I think some of the advice that comes through to people, I think, well, I haven't got time to do any of that. That's not why I set up this business. I set up this business so that I could spend more time with the horses and having it as a running concern, and then asking them to create content and understand all of that on top of it just seems too overwhelming. So if you can make it quick and easy and done for you, then I think that definitely then gets people's attention into, oh, actually, this is something that I can actually do for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said about stories, and especially with the clients you were telling us about as well, that they don't think that what they have to say is of interest, or it's self-promotion and it's a little bit of hype kind of thing. And even Lucinda saying, well, don't people know about this? And things like that, if we take a step back and think, well, actually quite a lot of people don't know about it, and quite
Mm,
a lot of people do, but it's still interesting to hear
yeah.
it from a different perspective. And we do, like you said, we have our own personal stories about our own horses and our
Mm,
own journeys. So I know a lot of people struggle for content ideas, but
mm,
actually, if you just look around your tack room or look at your horses, or why do you use, wood pellet bedding or whatever it
yeah.
might be, they're all these little nuggets that we could put together, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, it's very easy to have a sort of 100. In fact, that's given me an idea. What I should maybe do is do a list for people of, 100 video ideas you can start with that anybody who's around horses could shoot. Because then if you're completely stuck for ideas, then you could just follow that list, couldn't you, and build up your
Ah,
own footage on your
yeah.
camera roll.
Yeah. And I should say as well, Jay, that if anyone is struggling with social media posting and ideas, that they really need to get onto your email list as a first thing, because you put out some fantastic emails and tips in that.
Oh, thanks.
I love that. I don't often follow it. I'd like to do. I'm going to get those teenagers onto it, but I do love your emails. Really useful. But also, you've got quite a lot of resources on your website as well, haven't you? And people.
Yeah, so I've got a free area, so people can just go to the website, which is equinevideopro.com, and go to the top where it says free resources, and then on there we keep it updated. So we've just got some PDF, like quick reference guides of things like how to shoot great B-roll, how to shoot non-shaky footage, how to turn on the blur, how to change your settings. So they're all there laid out for people. So yeah, everybody's very welcome to do that. And then there is a button you can click on, as you say, to get the emails. What I tend to do with emails is try and give people tips every week of easy things to do. And then, if the apps are changing, just to say, have you tried this? Or I think the most popular one people said, I can't believe I didn't really know this, was how to take a photo at the same time as doing a video. So when you're recording a video, there's a if you look on your phone and you're recording a video and you think, oh, actually this is nice, I'd quite like a photo of this. To the right of your record button, there's a white circle. If you just press that, then that will take a photo for you at the same time as you're doing a video.
Wow, that's a
Nobody really
revelation.
knows that.
I never heard of that.
So again, you can save a bit more time, you see.
Yeah, yeah, sort of going back and seeing if you can get that
Yeah,
frame
exactly.
again.
Oh, now I'll take a photo. It's like, no, it'll let you do it for you.
Oh, that's brilliant. And you have got two super courses, and I'm enrolled on both of them. And there's a £7 Reels course,
Yeah,
and there's the video course as well, isn't there?
yeah.
You
And
offer
we've now
more
done,
detail.
we have now done another one, which we've got a £17 course, which is how to set up your Instagram account. So that talks you through how to make sure that your biography at the top is working, different sorts of content that you could put up, hashtags. So it's if you just feel like, you want to be on Instagram, but you're not sure why it's not working, then that's a really easy way to go through all of that and just double check everything is working on there. Because again, I think with your bios, that's a whole work in itself, isn't it? At the top,
Yeah,
and people just say, oh, I do this, I do this. And it's like, no, 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 you've got to tell people how you can help them. And nobody really knows that. But once you explain that to people, it's like, I help people, get better marks in their dressage test, or I help people know about supplements for their horse, then people are, oh, okay, now I get it. Or if they're, specifically saying, I will, I'm a sort of farrier working within 50 miles of this location, the more specific it is, then the more helpful it's going to be. And so many people have just said, oh, I didn't realize, that when I look back at my account, there were just a few things that I tweaked. So it wasn't just gelling together. But I think it's really worth getting Instagram working because there are so many equestrians on that platform.
Yeah, I love Instagram. It's a very friendly place compared to some of the other social medias. For
Yeah.
me, I think it's quite friendly and it's bright and there's lots of pictures and videos.
Yeah. It's more horses.
Exactly.
Never a shortage of horses to watch, is there?
No, or anything horse. I mean, like you said, these little reels where somebody's just grooming. I'll watch those all day.
But the other thing that's been popular is the ASMR videos. Do you know about those with the
I've heard a little bit. Yeah.
So mainly young people watch them and have sort of mad Japanese people eating these extraordinary sweets and things like that and crackling or nails or stuff like that. But in the horse world, just sort of, putting that little microphone near your horse's mouth and just recording it chomping away. I mean, people absolutely love that. Or just horses' hooves down the road, or, like a little montage of your favourite noises, or just them eating grass, things like that. Everyone's like, oh, this is just so lovely. I could listen to this all day.
Yeah. So, I've heard about it in a non-horsey way, people pop in bubble wrap or, these sounds that give you a good feeling. But I never thought about horsey ones.
Yeah, horsey ones.
Yeah.
That's given you some ideas now.
Yeah. And I mean, people have got visual ones as well, haven't they? That there's some things that people just like watching.
Yes. Like watching horses eat.
Yeah.
Just falling asleep, sort of head on their shoulder, things like that.
Yeah.
But that's where it's quite good also with using the slow-mo on your video, because it'll just automatically do that. So if everybody's got a slow-mo button, but if you've got a really old phone and it doesn't have one, then you don't need to worry, because you can just film it as it is, and then when you put it up in Instagram, they've spent a lot of money upgrading their editing platform, because I think they're trying to compete with CapCut. So it's basically now Instagram editing platform looks exactly like CapCut, and it does then give you the option in there, if you press speed, you can then slow that down to put it out as a slow-mo on Instagram without, even if you haven't got that facility on your phone. So that's what I mean about having an older phone doesn't necessarily stop you from doing things. You can just use the Instagram platform or CapCut or whatever, who will do all these things for you to help you out. So that's a lot cheaper doing that than going and buying a newer phone, especially if you really aren't going to use all the things it's offering.
Fabulous. I think people will have to listen to this 2 or 3 times to pick up all those tips that you've given us. You'll have to come back and give us an update as things evolve. So where can we find you on socials?
Well, I am on Instagram. That is Equine Video Pro UK. And I post quite a lot trying to give tips and stuff on Instagram, or there's the website, which is equinevideopro.com. And people can just contact me there. I mean, I do get quite a few people just off Instagram just DMing me, and saying, oh, could you help me? Could you help me with that? And then, generally I can help, and it's a quick fix with something. And it's nice because I was talking to somebody the other day online who was in Australia who was like, oh, have you got any footage of foals? I'm just doing a book on foals. And you think that's the really nice thing about it, isn't it? That you never have any clue that person existed otherwise.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I'm here, I'm pretty friendly, and we generally have got something that can help people, with whatever the problem is. Because as I say, we're all in this together, and it's just sad seeing people getting left behind because they just don't think there is a way that they can move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've inspired me. Watch this space. Thanks ever so much. It has been so fascinating. Thanks ever so much, Jay.
Thanks a lot. Great talking to you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.